me? Do you hear me?
Okay, we are. Okay.
Well, can I start my presentation? Anybody hear me? Hello?
Hi. We listen to, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, I'm really honored to be here today on your wonderful conference, and I would like to present you some clinical data regarding sitoflavin application in patients with ischemic stroke. Well, as a matter of fact, stroke has been a big problem in the Russian Federation, and this is the data which takes us to the 2005, when Russian Federation was one of the last places among the list of these participants. Therefore, the federal government implemented special healthcare program for stroke, among which there was the topic of investigation, the new medications which can conquer stroke. Let me briefly remind you some principal clinical points of hypoxia and ischemia, which is closely connected with the mechanism of action of sitoflavin. So, during ischemia, we observe a tremendous decrease of energy production because of the occlusion, oxidative stress, neurotransmitter misbalance, which is called excitotoxicity, and endogenous inflammation. This picture I draw myself, so please be condensed. This gray quadrant revealed metabolic derangement during ischemic stroke. And when this happens, membrane failed from its normal organization, it became like this, and lose its charge. Then several neurotransmitter systems increased to increase the charge, and several failed, like for instance cholinergic, adenosinic, and NMDA, other glutamic receptors are increased in their velocity. And finally, these are three major wells of ischemic stroke and three major points toward which the medication which is proposed to conquer ischemic stroke should be administration. Therefore, anti-ischemic pharmacological interventions should cover at least three misbalances. First, they should improve metabolic disturbances, severity of acidosis, and energy production as such. Reduce non-phosphorylizing oxidation, I mean reactive oxygen species, and decrease excitotoxicity. That was how sitoflavin was designed. On this slide, you may see, excuse me, 5 ingredients of sitoflavin. All of them are native products of the human cell. Succinic acid is the amplifier of partial reactions of the Krebs cycle. Nicotinamide is the precursor of NAD, which kingdom is on the above level. Inosine, speeding up the partial reactions of anaerobic metabolism. And finally, riboflavin is a very important coenzyme, let's say so, which speed up the reactions of Krebs cycle and participate in electronic transport chain as succinic acid itself. The fifth ingredient, meglumine or methylglucamine, serves sort of carrier of these four into the cell body, into mitochondria. I should mention that in 1911, after several stages of examination, citalflavin was included into the list of important and life-necessary medication in Russian Federation for medical care program. Let me give you a brief description of citalflavin for you to make acquaintance with it. It's a combination of the substrates I mentioned above. Indication for citalflavin was and is hypoxia and ischemia of different origin. Before stroke, we use citalflavin in other different critical care conditions. Contraindication, hypersensitivity, adverse reaction. It can lower the level of glucose moderately low, which is very important in case of ischemic stroke. And we administer citalflavin from 10 cc's to 40 cc's. This is the average dose. And in severe poisoning, for instance, and other critical conditions of patients, we increase citalflavin up to 80 cc's. So, finally, citalflavin improve metabolic impairment. Citalflavin decrease oxidative stress and normalize neurotransmitter imbalance. You may see two arms of citalflavin. First, metabolic activity, when the ingredients of citalflavin promotes the whole cycle of reactions of carbohydrate metabolism. And as we know, the end of this reaction is ATP production. That is the way how citalflavin conquer metabolic disruption. And another point is that citalflavin belongs to adenosinic neurotransmitter system, which can be used as non-competitive antagonist of glutamic system, where it's adenosinic receptors. Of course, the potency of adenosinic receptors couldn't be compared with the potency of glutamic receptors, but the presentation of adenosinergic systems in the human brain is very large. Finally, I would like to highlight the special role of succinic acid, which serves as a speeding as a speeding point in the Krebs cycle reaction. And when it goes to the right and when it goes to the left, in both sides, succinate produce energy support. And another reason why succinate was included into the composition of citalflavin is that it had additional metabolic shunt, which produced GABA, endogenous GABA, which is well known to have anti-hypoxic properties. Beyond that, I would like you to see this slide, which shows that during the rapid fusion of stroke or any other kind of rapid fusion, the succinic level go up to 0. So in citalflavin, it serves sort of the prosthetics in the Krebs cycle reactions. Well, finally, citalflavin activate aerobic and anaerobic glycolysis, reconstruct the electron transport chain. All this is the energy support, and lightly decrease NMDA excited toxicity. Now I would like to draw your attention to the clinical part of my presentation. We use citalflavin in 2 items. First, on pre-hospital period, exactly in the ambulance team. I should emphasize that still we have specialized ambulance team which carry neurologists on board. Therefore, this personnel is very fluent in neurological evaluation of patient condition. And the second point, we use citalflavin in the intensive care unit, neurological intensive care unit. Therefore, I will briefly speak about these clinical trials regarding sitoflavin. First one, pre-hospital sitoflavin administration in patients with ischemic stroke. It was the open-label study because it is very difficult to produce double-blind, placebo-controlled study on pre-hospital period during its limitations. The study design was as such: stroke patients taken from home from 6 up to 24 hours, that was the interval, received saline or saline plus sitoflavin. Study setting was ambulance teams of St. Petersburg and ambulance teams of Moscow. This is the interval when we administrate these medications. What we noticed, the earlier, or the sooner the administration of sitoflavin was done, the better was the outcome, with the less pronounced neurological deficit. So this is the set of patients where sitoflavin was given after 2 hours of stroke, and the last one after 48 hours of stroke. One may see the tremendous difference between these 2 points. And this is Glasgow Commerce score, and this is NIH score. Green bars is sitoflavin, gray bars controls. You may see that on the 5th days, we traced these patients from, they were given only on pre-hospital period, from home up to the end of ICU standing. On the 5th days, there was statistically significant difference between sitoflavin group and control group. Sitoflavin patients who received sitoflavin on pre-hospital period on the 22nd days performed better than control patients. You may see on the NIH score neurological deficit, statistical difference in between these 2 groups. Another investigation I would like to share with you was more serious. It was double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled, multi-center study, which was performed in several cities of St. Petersburg, Moscow, and other cities of Russian Federation. The length of the study was from 2007 up to 2012. I would say that the exposition time of stroke after brain infarct was 18 hours, and 85 patients experienced stroke for the first time. On arrival, on CT scan, the injured area was 18.4 cubic centimeters, and NH score was 13 plus minus 3.5. According to the NH score, it was different in different patients. We separated them, those who have less injury of stroke and those who have severe injury of stroke. All interventions were identical, except treated group received sitoflavin in 2 regimens. Controls received placebo. For placebo, we use ascorbic acid, 5% 20 c-bit, and first group of sitoflavin received 10 cc/bit for the period of 10 days. The second group of sitoflavin, we call it sitoflavin 20, received also 10 cc's, but for the period of 20 days. So furthermore, this group will be sitoflavin 10, and this group will be sitoflavin 20. Patients were equal by sex, comorbidity, by age, by blood pressure level, heart rate level, and level of time of admission. Measurements were performed on the first day, on 10th day, and on the 21st day, and they include routine analysis and tests, which we use during stroke in stroke patients, CT on day 1st and day 21st, and of course, scales, stroke scales, accepted everywhere. NIH, Bartle Index, Rankin Scale, Rheumatoid Morbidity Index, and we also implemented MMSE and marker test. Statistics of this investigation were done with the computer simulated programs, and also for non-parametric data we received Wilcoxon-U criteria. Inclusion criteria: age, acute ischemic stroke in carotis area provided by CT, not MRA. Age 40 up to 79. Hospitalization 6-24 interval. NIH score 6-21. Absence of any antihypoxic or metabolic medications for the period of 2 months. Also absence of thrombolytic therapy. Exclusion criteria includes patients with severe comorbidities and severe stroke injury, less than 10. Epilepsy, brain hemorrhage, heavy skull trauma, CNS tumors, infection disease, chronic alcohol intoxication, and drug addicts, and patients with, let's say, liver toxicity, 3 LFTs plus 2 alkaline phosphatase. All patients have signed informed consent. Total number of patients was 400. One of the most important things was that during the time of observation, we noticed the reduction of infarction volume on the 21st day after treatment with sitaflavin for 10 in 20 days. This is control group. This is sitaflavin 10 days. This is sitaflavin 20 days. Black bars reveals reduction of ischemia. Wild bars, expansion of ischemia. As you may see, in the control groups of the 22nd day, we notice the expansion of ischemia in the majority of patients. On the day 27, sitaflavin 10 reduced brain ischemic zone to 11.8%, P less than 0.05, and sitaflavin 20 reduced ischemic brain zone for 17.9%. Reduction of the ischemic zone in placebo group was not recorded. This is stroke volume in persons. This is stroke volume in cubic centimeters. Neurological deficit and functional outcomes after treatment with sitaflavin for 10 and 20 days. We divided patients, as I mentioned above, less than 14 in age, more than 14 in age. So, as well in the revealing of Bartle index. You may see controls, sitaflavin 10, sitaflavin 20. First day, first bar, 10-day, middle bar, and 21st day, third bar. You may see statistically significant difference in between these two groups, but I should say that no difference was recorded in sitaflavin 20 and in sitaflavin 10. Those who experience severe stroke also perform better. Neurological deficit decrease, but the differences was not statistically different in sitaflavin 10 and sitaflavin 20, but both groups overcome the control group. According to invalidity, let's say, in Bartle scale, we also notice statistical difference between sitaflavin 10 and controls, sitaflavin 20 and controls, less than 14 and more than 14 also were recorded. This difference were not statistically different. Reduction of brain and function focus depends on severity of neurologic deficit after treatment with sitaflavin for 10 and 20 days. I would say, all in all, regress of neurologic deficit recorded by NIH score on the 21st day was sitaflavin 20, 8 grades, sitaflavin 10, 7 grades, controls 5 grades. And this is the slide which revealed neurologic, functional, and cognitive differences in between the groups. Controls, 10 days of administration, 20 days of administration. Severity of invalidization, let's take in total. 51 persons, more than 51% in the control, and only 23.4 during 10 days of sitaflavin treatment. 21.3 during 20 days of sitaflavin treatment. All these figures were statistically significant as to compare to the control. Normalization of cognitive status. 16.8 controls, 24.4 sitaflavin, and more than 30% in sitaflavin 20. Here we reveal the differences in between these two regimens of treatment. And finally, those patients who experienced dementia more than 19 was in control group more than 34%. In sitaflavin group, 17%. In sitaflavin 20, 18%. Here we didn't notice statistical differences, but both groups show statistical differences as to compare to the controls. Finally, I would like to say about mortality rate in sitaflavin groups after 10 and 20 days of treatment. Control groups, 6.8, sitaflavin, 2.3, and sitaflavin 20, 2.8. Such a low mortality can be explained that we didn't enroll to the investigation patients with the severe neurological deficit and comorbidic state, because we try to notice the sitaflavin action. Sitaflavin stroke treatment in the other regimen, 10 cc's for 10 days, when we increased the dose of sitaflavin. Study design, study setting, interventions and measurements, as well as statistics, were the same, except in the group of treated patients, they received sitaflavin 20 cc's for 10 days. I didn't tell that sitaflavin should be dissolved in the 5% of dextrose solution and should be given in a very slow regimen. We didn't use it more than 30, let's say, drops per minute. So, mortality, the reduction of stroke volume. The blue bars is the controls on the 5 day of stay in ICU. The yellow bars, sitaflavin after 5 days of stay in ICU and after 5 days of treatment. This is 25th days in the control and sitaflavin group. One may see statistical difference between these bars. Very interesting figures were received upon mortality rate on the 21st day of stay in the acute period of stroke. The blue bars, controls, and mortality rate was 15.2%. And the, let's say, brown bars, light brown bars is citalopram, which was 8.4%. This is Bartle Index, functional outcomes after stroke treatment with this regime of citalopram administration. Red one is unfavorable outcomes. 9% in citalopram group and more than 25% in the control group. That was tremendous difference, statistically significant. The blue circle reveals partial recovery, which was also more than in the control groups, but with other statistical difference. And the green bars, full recovery in citalopram and control groups. This I would like to show you MRI, because in this investigation we did MRI test. This is citalopram group, 20 cc's for 10 days. Look, this is the 25th days of stay in the hospital. And this is control groups. 11 days of stay in the of citalopram, reduced neurologic deficit. 9.3, 11.4 controls. Restore Glasgow Coma score, 14.2, 13.9 controls. Registered on the 5 day of stay in ICU. We tracked these patients. Double-blind citalopram studies, placebo control, multi-center. What we noticed? In stroke patient, citalopram, all in all, reduces ischemic brain lesion to 1.5, 1.7 times on 10 and 20 days of treatment. In control group, significant morphologic changes were not recorded, like in group of citalopram. Citalopram administration was followed up with better functional outcomes and with better cognitive outcomes. Both were statistically significant. In patients with severe stroke injury, NH score more than 16, 20 days of citalopram administration still resulted in better clinical outcomes than in 10 days of citalopram administration. But this group was presented by, experienced most severe features of ischemic stroke. Moderate stroke injury did not reveal clinical difference between the lengths of citalopram administration. Finally, when we increase the citalopram dose and use the regimen of 20 cc's for 10 days, this regimen dramatically reduced ischemic brain lesion, patient functional status, and mortality rate from 15.2 to 8.2% in the citalopram group. That I would like to share with you, and thank you very much.